What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ruben. We're going into week 7. I took a week off last week because I felt like both my team seasons required a moment of silence. If you guys want to share in that with me, let's just take a 2 seconds moment of silence right now for the death that is my Cowboys and Jaguars. It's it's been rough watching. Last week we lost Dak Prescott to a compound fracture to his lower leg ankle area. By all accounts, surgery went well. The only thing is we're now stuck with basically the Walking Dead playing on offense and defense, if you want me to be honest with you, that is the Dallas Cowboys. The funny thing is, we still have an opportunity to go ahead and win this division because the division is so bad. And I just saw the Thursday night game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. Thought the Giants were actually going to take it, but I guess cooler heads prevailed. Because Philadelphia really should have took that win regardless of what their injury issues are. But the Giants had it within their grasp. Evan Engram dropped the ball. There's been plenty of memes talking about Butterfingers hilariously posted on social media when it comes to Evan Engram. Now, I did get into a back and forth with somebody yesterday. I think this is Evan Ingram's 4th season. I don't know if they picked up his 5th year option, or I could be wrong. It could be his 5th year, but I do believe he's going to be a player that could possibly be on the move if the Giants don't pay him. And I think he'd be a steal for anybody. I was discussing that I think Evan Engram might be the most athletic tight end in the league. He just needs a good system, good quarterback. Give you some background. He's 6'3", 240 pounds. He ran a 4.42 at the combine. He might be the fastest tight end in the league. He had a very promising rookie year when they had a little bit of stability right before Eli Manning just completely fell off the rails. That's the kind of tight end you're looking at. This is the kind of guy that they're running reverses, and he looks good. He looks explosive. So imagine if he was with a Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers, any kind of offense that has weapons that he's basically not the best athlete on the field. His best season was when they had Odell Beckham on the other side, So just some food for thought. Jaguars still need a tight end. He looked beautiful in the Dallas Cowboys jersey, but I digress. The Jacksonville Jaguars season's pretty much done now. We're 1-5 going into week 7, going to the Chargers, and I don't feel good about this game. In fact, I don't feel good about this season. They haven't won a single game since week 1. They're literally on a 5-game losing streak. It's a problem. I'm now at the point where I'm rooting for them to lose pretty much every game because you want the draft pick, the earliest draft pick possible. And I really hate to see them end up at like 3 and have to give up a boatload of draft picks just to move to 1 to get Trevor Lawrence. A little bit of my thoughts on Trevor Lawrence. I like him a lot. I like what I saw even in the loss to LSU, but I still don't love him. If you look at his first 2 seasons, I don't think he even threw for 3,000 yards. They protected him a lot. They didn't ask him to do much until playoffs, and he did play well in the playoffs. Actually, let me rephrase that. He played well the first playoffs. Last year, he didn't play so hot against Ohio State, but he did what he needed to do to pull that game out. So, like I said, I like him. I don't love him. I don't think he's a can't miss prospect that everybody has billed him to be, because I've seen some chinks in the armor that makes me wonder if that's an NFL team. Like, he was playing Ohio State. If that's an NFL team, does he pull that game out? Now, there's something to be said for having the guts to the intestinal fortitude to pull that game out that hard fought, ugly game. There is something to that. That is a skill that I want in my quarterback. But then he went to LSU, which was basically an NFL team, and you can make the argument that, well, that was the best team in the country, and it was, but he looked a little human in the championship game. I think he played well. I saw some throws I liked. I think I see an NFL quarterback. I just wonder if I see generational talent. That's if that makes it more clear for everybody. Um, but let me go back, right? So that's ultimately what I want for the Jaguars. If we're gonna lose, might as well lose and get Trevor Lawrence. I like Gardner Minshew. If you watched any of my videos before, I've been high on Gardner Minshew, and it's not necessarily a knock on Gardner Minshew in terms of quarterback play. I think he is a very, I don't want to say good, but he's not a bad quarterback. The only thing that hinders Gardner Minshew is, and I've stated this before, while he's a computer in the mind when it comes to playing the game from the quarterback position in the pocket, he has good mobility. He knows the ways the defenses are trying to attack him. He just doesn't have the arm strength. If you've watched enough games, there's been games where he's overthrown. This is going to sound like it doesn't make sense, right? So he doesn't have the arm strength. There's been situations where he's overthrown receivers in situations that would have been long bomb touchdowns. Well, that doesn't sound like it makes sense, right? So let me explain. When you overthrow the receiver, it's because you don't have not just the arm strength, because it's not just sheer arm strength. It comes from the legs and the hips, right? When you don't have all of that and you can't make those easy kind of throws where you're just, okay, that guy broke wide open, but I got to launch this thing 40 yards downfield, 50 yards downfield for him to catch it and score, hit him in stride, right? The reason he overthrew it is because he has to overcompensate, because it's not easy for him to throw it that far downfield. So what happens is he puts his all into it because he knows he has limited arm strength, and he overshoots it because it's not a natural thing for him. He has to, it looks like he's putting everything into the throw to get it out there. Watch Trevor Lawrence. It's easy for him to toss it 40 yards down the field. One of the best deep ball throwers of our time was Michael Vick, and he used to just flick it, right? If Gardner Minshew has to throw a pass 40 yards downfield while on the move, it's going to be a very inaccurate ball. And so now teams are playing him within the 20-yard box, basically. They're trying to keep things in front of him because they know he's not that big a threat downfield. And if you get him to move off his spot, you're going to get an inaccurate ball that could lead to an interception. So that's ultimately the problem with Gardner Minshew. You can win with a Gardner Minshew if you have a strong defense and strong running game. We don't have a strong defense, and the running game is serviceable. So this is the kind of team you need. You need a thoroughbred at quarterback. If he, and I repeat, if he was on the 2017 AFC Championship Jaguars, I think he takes them to the Super Bowl with that defense and that running game. So that's just some perspective on Gardner Minshew. The Cowboys, as I've stated, they're still my favorite to win the division. However, at this point, I don't know if I'd rather them lose and just to get a higher draft pick, or let them win the division and get in the playoffs. My problem is, and also in the previous video, I talked about how I liked the Andy Dalton signing. I talked about how I thought that was a boss move by Jerry Jones to pick him up. Excuse me. The reason I thought it was a boss move to pick him up was because they're in negotiations with Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott's playing a little bit of hardball. Or it could be vice versa, who knows. However, Andy Dalton's an established veteran who's had success. Not recent success, but he's had success, right? What I liked about the signing is Andy Dalton, if we were right and had our all-pro offensive line, he still could have success now, but he could have been a threat if the offense was healthy. So Dak Prescott, who I think is a little bit of a force multiplier. And what I mean by that is you don't have to have everything perfect around him. And that's been the big knock on him that I think a lot of people are eating crow about, right? Dak Prescott, regardless of the offensive line that was in front of him, was still throwing for almost 500 yards a game. As of last week, I want to say it was last week, I think he was still leading the league in yards. So, with the same offensive line Andy Dalton has to play with, Andy Dalton looked horrible last week. Horrible last week in his first start. We took a pretty horrendous L. It was bad. And it has me concerned because anytime we play a team with any kind of pass rush, it's going to affect Andy Dalton. And it's not going to be a good look for us. Right now, our only chance is to really feed Zeke. And even Zeke is not looking good. He's dropping the ball on the turf a lot. So do you really want that team to make the playoffs and have to play somebody like Green Bay or Tampa Bay, whose defense is emerging? And I talked about Tampa Bay's defense, that if they found a way to shore up that secondary, that defense could be interesting. One of the best front sevens in the league. They lost Vita Vea and they still haven't missed a beat. So Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaquille Barrett, Devin White, Levante David, they got to have the best linebacking core in the league. So do I want my Cowboys to go in and see them? Now, I reserve the right to change my thoughts as information comes in. Because while our defense looks bad, the Cowboys, that is, I don't think they're as bad as they're showing. And why is that? We just got Leighton Vander Esch back off a collarbone injury. If you watch the game, they were kind of yanking him in and out. It's going to take a second for him to knock the rust off. And he broke a collarbone. So I was nervous for him, considering he plays a position that requires him to do a lot of tackling, right? And hitting people. We just got Anthony Brown back. Trevon Diggs is a rookie. Does he come of age towards the end of the season? Cheeto should be coming back. And Sean Lee should be coming back. There's so many parts that we haven't been together long enough that I really think this defense could look like a completely different defense towards the end of the season. Now, if the defense morphs into a top 15 defense, then we have enough firepower on offense to make things interesting. But ultimately today, I'm very concerned about them getting into the playoffs and getting destroyed in the playoffs and just ultimately killing our draft position. I don't realistically see them being a Super Bowl contender this year based on what I've seen so far. Let's see what happens towards the end of the season. I don't really like to make predictions until, playoff seedings are set, and then I kind of give my predictions then. But Dak Prescott, back to him real quick, that injury was one of those kind of injuries that make you scared for a guy's career. Like I said, it looks like he's doing well, but I did a video on Patrick Mahomes on why I thought Patrick Mahomes' deal was not a good deal for him. And part of that, I don't have all the numbers. Please, I'll drop a link to the video so that you can get a better understanding of my explanation as to why I thought Patrick Mahomes' deal wasn't the greatest deal for him. But I can give you the gist of it. So basically, Patrick Mahomes' signing bonus, I believe, was only $10 million, which is nothing. He has an injury guarantee for around $140 million, which is good. Where I said his deal wasn't great is everybody got hung up on the $500 million deal over 12 seasons, right? What I said was, in 2003, I think, he has no dead cap hit. So let's say he experiences an injury like Dak Prescott, he could retire, get the $140 million, but that's $360 million less than $500 million, right? So you're leaving $360 million on the table. He's not going to see 500 million unless he literally plays out 10 to 12 years of this contract and never gets hurt. If he's healthy, he can come back and renegotiate. What I also stated was in a few years, so like I think 2022-23 is the year they're probably going to come back to the table. But what I stated was he could have been the first quarterback to get a $200 million deal fully guaranteed. Fully guaranteed. 200 million is more than 140. And then he could have came back to the table. TV contracts would have been higher, and he might have the salary cap can go up. He might have been the first quarterback to sign a 5 to 6 year deal for 300 million. If it's 5 years, you're talking around 9 years as opposed to 12 having made that 500 million. And I this isn't a test for y'all, so I know I don't want to confuse everybody too much with math, but ultimately he didn't get the most out of the deal that he should. Everybody was hyped for him, and this is a double-edged sword that fans love it when players it's for the love of the game, right? What happens when you're Dak Prescott and you want that money that you think you've earned and deserved, because Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick, so he didn't get the same 1st round money that Patrick Mahomes got. You want your money, they don't give it to you, so you gamble on yourself, which you've been doing your whole career, and then you snap your ankle in half. He could have slid on that play and still been living. He should, in my opinion, have held out for the money, because I'm always going to be pro player getting their money. There's certain situations that I don't always agree with everything players do, but I believe in them getting their money because they don't sign guaranteed contracts and their lifespan in the NFL is very short. I don't agree necessarily with Le'Veon Bell and the way he held out for his money. That's a little bit of a different situation, but Dak Prescott should have held out for his money, and I really hope the Cowboys do give him his money. That's up in the air next year. So that's going to be a super interesting thing to consider. All right. Also, in other news, Yannick Ngakoue was traded again. They got a 3rd and a 5th, I believe a conditional 5th from the Baltimore Ravens. And now I'm on the Baltimore Ravens train for them going to the Super Bowl. I think Yannick Ngakoue is that big a deal for them going into the playoffs, because I think he gives them the legitimate pass rusher they were missing. They got a lot of solid guys that can get after the quarterback, but nobody that you're losing sleep scheming at night if you're a defensive coordinator. The Yannick Ngakoue on the other side of a Matt Judon with Calais Campbell in the middle, that is dangerous. Dangerous, considering the secondary they have. That defense is now complete. They're going to be a problem. With the way they can score the ball, they're going to be a problem. Their Achilles heel is Lamar Jackson still not lighting it up from the pocket. He still needs to do better in the pocket. But I think Yannick Ngakoue has now put them pretty much in the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs. They look like they're on a collision course, and he could be the difference that swings the pendulum in their favor over the Chiefs. So we'll see about that. But the better question is, what's going on that Yannick Ngakoue left Jacksonville, went to Minnesota, and is being traded again in a contract year? It's unheard of. I stated before, I think that his behavior has cost him money. I don't think that he went about things the right way. I love Yannick Ngakoue. I'm a little, annoyed that we couldn't figure things out. Just like Dak, I stated Yannick Ngakoue came into the NFL out of the 3rd round, right? We swung on him, but he's one of those guys. He's always been smaller than everybody. He has little man syndrome. He has a very high opinion of himself, and he's a very he is an elite pass rusher. Okay, not as great against the run, but he's a problem when it comes to rushing the passer. He has a overinflated opinion of himself, and he has a huge chip on his shoulder. So when the Jaguars, I believe, offered him 19 million a year, he just saw, I believe, Frank Clark and D Ford get about 20. And I think he was insulted. And as a result, how do you tell somebody, dude, you're not worth that, right? Without them getting offended. And I think he got offended, and the Jaguars became the next team on his shit list. And I think that's ultimately what happened. Combine that with the fact that we were losing, and that's all she wrote. However, he went to Minnesota. We thought he was going to make a hellacious pass rush duo with Danielle Hunter. They lost Danielle Hunter for the season. Their season's lost. And instead of paying him, it looks like they've decided to go in the other direction and let him go. It looks like, to me, that Minnesota decided to cut their losses with Yannick Ngakoue. Now, I haven't heard anything about his attitude or yada, yada, yada. But when you go to a new team and you have that same overinflated ego, they're thinking, hey, you haven't earned this with us. We're 1-5. Yeah, he's having a nice season. He's, I believe, top 5 in sacks right now. But you haven't earned those stripes with the team. And it also looks like the team is heading for, I don't want to say a full rebuild because I commended them for kind of retooling on the fly. I think it's a little premature. If they start firing people, I honestly think they should give it another year, considering the injury that they had to Danielle Hunter. They had to replace him with Yannick, which, while it's great for the pass rush, it affects you against the run. They lost a lot of defensive players. You're replacing them with rookies. I expected them to have a bit of a rough year. The real problem in Minnesota is Kirk Cousins. You have a lot of pieces in Minnesota to do everything you need to do. Kirk Cousins isn't the guy. So it looks to me like they're cutting their losses with certain players. It looks like they're getting ready to get rid of Kirk Cousins, just eat the cost and start over. With that, I have a feeling it's the end of Zimmer and the GM. So, or just Zimmer at least. So it looks like this is going to be a situation that if I'm a coach, like I like what the Minnesota Vikings are doing and what they're representing. So I would consider that as a job that I would go to. If I were a coach, because they have a stable of corners they just drafted recently. They have Danielle Hunter, who's one of the premier pass rushers, whose money is coming up, so I'll give you that. They have things to work around. They have Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson looks like a phenom next to Adam Thielen, who I think is one of the best wide receivers in the league. They have an up-and-coming offensive line. They have a good backup running back. They have tight ends. This is a team that's going to bounce back quickly. They're in a bit of a rough division, but a team that's going to bounce back quickly. So those are just my thoughts. I appreciate everybody for listening. Please go to the YouTube channel, select the link on the bottom of the page. Please give me a subscription, I'd greatly appreciate it, and continue to follow my journey as I try to make this channel bigger so that we can have a forum that's for us and by us, and by that I mean us football heads. So, any questions, concerns, breakdowns of any kind of team, put them in the comments. I'm gonna get back with you guys. I appreciate y'all. Peace out.